locked out of my computer and needed my papers to chair the meeting. So if we could now stand for the karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, ki a mā kina kina ki uta, ki a mā taratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei Moriora. Wonderful, thank you. Right, so welcome everyone to the last Pūroro Āmua committee meeting for the year. So that is significant, and then we will again. Okay, yeah, you're just showing me up. Right, better make up for it tomorrow at council. Okay, so yes, a warm welcome. Please do let me or Hayley know if you need to leave. We're going to have morning tea at 10:30. And councillors, I will set you a challenge that we will finish by 12:30. Hopefully that is going to be easy. Brilliant. All right. Now, apologies. Do we have any apologies? Councillor Foon for lateness.
I mean, I need to leave at 3 p.m.
We're not going till 3 p.m. If we are, I will be doing some procedural motions. So that will be fine. Okay, so just
Madam Chair, I'm expecting to have to duck out at some stage during the meeting.
What time, Mayor Foster?
That will depend on various media, etc. things.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, not sure.
Okay, thank you. Right, well, I'm going to move that. Councillor Paul, would you like to second? Thank you. Yes, we are voting. Is it everyone, or who are we waiting for?
No, it's just that.
Oh, it just takes a while. It is, sorry, it is still just processing. Okay, thank you. So that is
waiting on Councillor O'Neill.
Councillor O'Neill. Oh yes, okay, great. Thank you. No, we're good. Right, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. More yellow. It is a yellow day. Conflict of interest declarations. Does anyone have any to declare? Right, okay, so if we can now move to the confirmation of minutes. So I'm going to move that those minutes are approved from the 10th of November. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Free. If you could now vote, please. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Rush, can you vote? That's carried, thank you. All right, now, no items not on the agenda, so that's right, 12:30 we'll try and finish, and Mr Taylor isn't there, so we don't have any public participation. We were trying to confirm that last night, but we don't have anyone. Right, so now it's my great pleasure to welcome the petitioners from Hataitai Road, Mr Clive Aspin and Terry Armstrong, to speak to your petition. Thank you so much for coming along.
Tēnā koutou katoa nā rangatira o tēnei kaunihera Ka nui te mea tēnei ki a koutou katoa. Thank you very much for your invitation. And I would like to acknowledge the communication we've had with Councillor Rush over this petition. So thank you for your indicative support, Councillor Rush, and thank you to everybody for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. We just want to cover 4 points, one of them relating to the intersection and the improvements that have occurred down there, the complications that have occurred as a result, and then some of the solutions that we would like you to consider. And we're very heartened to find that your parking policy supports the petition that we're presenting this morning. Next slide, please. So most of you will know this photo. The house that we're speaking to you from is the second on the right. The one on the far right is no longer there, but those 5 houses you can see at the top of that of the ridge, plus 3 to the left, are signatories to this petition. I just want to point out that we are located opposite what used to be the bowling club, but now is a very vibrant community centre. And this is part of the discussion that I want to have with you this morning. We want to have with you this morning. Next slide, please. So this is the modern day version of Āmua Road. And these photos were taken over the space of the last 2 years. Not only is it a very common place for people to park during the daytime and then take the buses from down the bottom of the street, but also it's a thoroughfare for the number 35 bus. And on most occasions, it's extremely difficult to find parking in the street as a result of the fact that some of the spaces have been suppressed near the village and at the bottom of the street.
Outside the community centre.
Oh, and outside the community centre. So we've stated all these 4 points in our letter, but the community centre now has dedicated parking spaces, which is great, but it means that some of the residents no longer have the same access to parking spaces that were there before. Next slide. And there's the beautiful number 35. Goes up on a regular basis.
Which causes problems because cars can't come in the opposite direction, but that's another matter.
Yeah, we've lost mirrors on 2 or 3 occasions from the side of our car, as have other residents. So if we could just flick to the final slide. So we were heartened to read your policy, that there are pressures on parking spaces in the suburbs, and our street is no exception. You point out that the areas with good access to public transport become very popular for people to come and park during the day and then take public transport. And we have noted on a regular basis that there are a number of people who park in our street, then walk down to the bottom of the street and take the bus. And that you are supportive of resident exempt permits for eligible residents. And this is really why we are meeting with you today and the purpose of our petition, which has been signed by 23 people, all the residents in those houses that I pointed out, plus other people who encounter similar issues to us in this narrow street on which we live. So we have nothing to add other than what's in our letter, and we just respectfully request that you take this into consideration and agree to allocate some residence parking. We estimate that 8 would serve us because there are 8 houses that have been adversely affected by the recent renovations to the roundabout at the bottom of the street. And we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Clive and Terry. Right, Deputy Mayor Free and then Councillor Condi with questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive and Terry. And I do remember talking to you about this actually probably about a year ago at the community
right.
centre.
Yes.
In fact, you encouraged us to send a petition, so we
Yes,
acted
I
on
did.
your advice.
So just about the residence parks, do you think the pressure on car parking is there partly because people are parking to catch the bus?
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
if
yes,
so,
yes.
I wondered if you thought some bike parking down near the bus, near the village might help people ride down to catch the bus rather than, I mean, it's just a thought, because we have to find solutions, creative solutions.
Yeah. There is actually a guy who drives down and parks opposite us with the bike on the back of his car, and he cycles from there.
Oh,
And
the
he
other way
cycles in town.
round.
And I spoke to him the other day and asked him where he came from. He lives up on Pūroro Road at the top of Āmua, and he says at the end of the day, it's too difficult to cycle up the road. So he puts his bike on the back of the car and then drives up to his house.
Oh, so we need some bike parking. Okay. Well, bike parking might help with that.
That's
No.
not going to make any difference to him. He'll still drive down.
No, he can't cycle up the street on the
I
way
see what you're
home
saying.
afterwards.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
He's no longer as fit as he used to be, he told me.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. It sounds like that gentleman needs an e-bike. I think
He does.
one of
He does.
the advice that we've had from staff is that the residence parking, we're not quite ready to roll that out yet. We're still doing some operational work behind the scenes. So while we support it in theory, it might take a while before we can deliver it for you. And I was just wondering, in the meantime, whether we might be able to introduce something along the lines of 4-hour parking along the street that was only during the day, which would then discourage that park and ride, because you wouldn't be able to park for the full day. So it wouldn't be residence parking, but it might help with the commuters who are using that space, and we might be able to deliver that sooner. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
Well, that's a useful compromise, I guess, and it might discourage the man from up the top of the hill. However, it does mean that when we drive away during the day to go, for example, to the supermarket, we often have to park a long way from our house. If the 4-hour was available, we could park there, but we would have to move after 4 hours.
Yeah.
And so the difficulty in that scenario is carrying heavy goods a long distance to our house after having been.
We actually don't use our car every day. I walk a lot and I catch the bus a lot. Clive catches the bus. So, well, I'm retired, I could move the car.
Yeah,
it's obviously not ideal, but it'll be interesting to see if that could be delivered significantly faster. It might be, in the interim, it might be something we could do.
Okay, if I could ask a question at this point. So the people who have signed the letter are mindful of the fact that we are meeting with you this morning. What can I tell them in terms of how long it will take if you were to implement residence parking, if they asked us?
I will be asking staff that this morning, so I don't actually have a figure about how far away residence parking might be. But we have had some advice that P240 option would probably still be 6 months away, because we are very backlogged with lots of requests for parking changes at the moment. So I will be asking officers this morning, and hopefully we'll have a bit more information for you if you can.
If you can just hang on, they'll be straight after the
So-
questions.
So would it be reasonable to say to them that the council is considering residence parking? Is that accurate?
Well, I can't speak for the council. I can speak for myself that I'm certainly very open to it. I think this is exactly the kind of case where we would be looking at residence parking, but it's a matter of us not quite being ready yet to roll that out operationally.
Okay.
So we can give our neighbours a positive response to this meeting today.
So can I just suggest we just finish the questions, and then you can hear the councillor questions to staff, and then you'll get a better feel just for what you can tell your neighbours. Okay. So just that we have run out of time, but I'll be flexible. Councillor O'Neill and Mayor Foster, just succinct questions. Thank you.
Kia ora, Clive and Terry. It's great to see you again.
Terry.
My question is around the capacity issues that this creates. When we were looking at the roundabout, we removed the bus stop there to try and create a few more parks. Could you speak a little bit to maybe the impacts, not just on Haitatai Road, but Āmua Road and people accessing the school? Because I know if people back up your street, it impacts streets over from you. But could you just speak to a bit?
Well, generally, the roundabout works really well for pedestrians. And I noticed that cars slow down beautifully, but then they accelerate quite fast once they come through the roundabout. So generally, the renovations of the roundabout has been a really positive thing. It's just the suppression of some of the car spaces that's been problematic. Yeah. And now as we point out, that's been complicated by the fact that the community centre is attracting more and more people, not only during the day, but in the evening. And we note that they have put in an application to put in a commercial kitchen, which suggests that there's going to be even more activity in the near future.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Foster, Councillor Rush, very quickly. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Clive and Terry. It sounds like a series of successes putting pressure on the street. So I was just going to ask you to sort of think forward a little bit as to how you see things might happen with the changes that are being suggested in terms of densification by government in all of these sort of residential areas. It sounds like everyone is reliant on on-street parking.
Yeah.
How do you see that potentially playing out with more development in the area and more residents?
Well,
there won't be more residents in our neck of the woods. They're all old houses.
yeah. And we've got neighbours who've been here for almost 20 years and they've seen significant changes, and that's impacted on their personal, personal spaces in terms of parking. I mean, I understand, Councillor Foster, the need to introduce, allow more spaces for people to live in, but I can't see it happening here. But it does mean that over time we're going to have significant issues with cars, and maybe that's not a bad thing.
If there was going to be a car sharing company willing to come to a tai, we would be there. We lived in Sydney before. We always had car share companies in the location, and it was brilliant. But I've contacted them. They're not coming to a tai.
But that's a really important issue that you might like to support. If we could get some car share spaces in our suburb, I think there would be a huge amount of uptake. And if there was such a facility here, we would get rid of our car and depend on that. So
happy to raise it with them. So thank you.
That would be a great thing if the council could get in behind that and support those companies to bring a space to Hautairo. That would get a lot of.
I've already contacted them. They're not coming. I don't think they see its business opportunity.
But if council supported them, maybe they would.
Okay,
We'll see. We'll talk to them and see what they say.
Okay.
Councillor Rush, do you have a question of submitters or officers?
Officers.
Right, okay. Thank you very much, Clive.
Thanks, guys.
Terry. Really appreciate you coming in and making all that effort. And we'll now have questions of officers, so you're very welcome to listen to that.
Shall I just ask quick last question? What's the process from here? Will we just wait to hear from you? Is that the story?
So what's going to happen is that we will have questions, and then colleagues may decide to move an amendment. That is up to them. And we will get back to you, though, just to close the loop.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, now my Mr. Zach Moody.
So we're going to do officers later, are we?
They're coming now.
Zach is an officer. He's a transport
I'm
officer.
sorry.
Zach is online.
Zach is online. Welcome, Zach.
Hello.
Sorry, just because I can't see you. If you'd like to introduce the report, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Sorry.
Turn on a camera.
Yes, I can do that in a second. Sorry, I just usually have my PC, my laptop hooked up to the side. I don't know. Is that working?
Right. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Excellent. Don't have that in front of me, just a sec.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think in this instance it's a petition. So Zach's probably caught on the hop. I know Brad's on his way down to this meeting now, but if any particular questions, Brad, perhaps it's Zach, sorry, it's probably better if maybe Councillor Rush asks his question about process. Okay. I suspect that the questions are around timing based on the resident submission this morning about how quickly we can move on the matter. Okay, sorry, he was just down on my list of people to introduce the report. Okay, Councillor Rush, do you want to ask a question? And then Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, I did send Brad a text saying as a heads up I'd be asking it. I'm just a bit confused around timing, and we obviously do have residents parking in the city. We must have some sort of process. We discussed this during the context of the roundabout. We knew that time limiting parks in and around the shopping area where commuters go to the most well-served bus stop in the Eastern Ward would actually have an impact. So I would like to understand why we can't move faster to help these people.
Should we wait for Brad? Yeah. Yep, all right.
Oh, sorry, I thought Brad was there.
No, he's
I'll
not.
say that again.
Sorry, Zach, I just had you down as my person, so we'll just wait for Brad and then we can answer the questions. Thank you. Just a couple of minutes.
I can try to answer on Brad's behalf. I sit Brad, Paul
Sorry.
Andrews, Kevin Black, and I, we all sit in the governance for the parking board.
Right, so both of you could answer the
Yeah, here you
questions.
go,
That
you
would be fantastic. Right. Welcome, Brad.
So
All right.
I guess what, just a high level, and Brad will probably add in something to it afterwards. We in the parking policy implementation team have been going through a process of prioritising all of the different requests we've come through, all of the areas we know that are going to be need to be looked at in terms of parking management plans, and we're in the process of finalising that prioritisation to understand where we should go first to address the problems there are. There's also things such as fire, working with the fire routes, making sure that fire trucks can get through, buses can get through, and other things. We are working towards having a paper at the beginning of next year where we go through and summarise what has happened since the parking policy was approved in August 2020, and what the next steps are. And this is one of the projects that we, of course, have on that prioritisation list, and it's sitting about halfway down at the moment.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Rush?
Yeah, I don't want to be difficult about this. Sorry, Vita, but I just guess I'm not quite sure I got the answer there. That there's a lot of parking things going on in the city, and this is down the list, sort of thing. Was that in a nutshell what you said?
Yep, so we've got a list of about 25 different areas that have requested parking management plans or need parking management plans in association with projects, and we're slowly working through, and that's one of the things we're going to come back to talk to you as councillors around how you would like to prioritise them and are they the right way.
Yeah, I guess, Peter, just, as I mentioned earlier, this was always something that we saw as part of the roundabout modification. So if I recall rightly, and I might not be, but the discussion was raised about residents parking, and the response from memory was that we would look at it after we'd completed. So how do we, shouldn't this be a priority? Shouldn't this be a higher priority?
Just given there's a whole lot of
I think, Councillor Rush, what we've done is exactly what Vida said. So there's a number of projects that require parking management plans post the project occurring. And so we've prioritized all these projects in terms of which parking management plans get done when. And what we'll be coming back to you with is that prioritized list for you to look at and potentially influence our decision making in terms of how we've created that framework and how we've prioritized.
Brad, can you just remind us that that there's new rules for parking? Because I think that one of the things that people don't understand is we've already got residence parking. Why can't we easily roll out more residence parking of the same type?
Yeah,
but
that's what the residents will say.
But under the new parking policy, we've got new rules around residence parking.
So there's a legacy residence parking scheme that exists within the city, but the parking policy stipulates a different type of residence parking scheme. And so the two things that we need to do is, one, shift the legacy parking schemes onto the new scheme, and any new scheme that we put in place, any new residence scheme, needs to be as per the new parking policy and the new scheme that's currently.
Right. Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Sorry, I just have to find my question.
Oh, we can go to Councillor.
No. Thank you. In the paper, we've said that it relies on current resources towards transport projects, and we've got about 25 areas that need parking management plans. How does this sit within amendments that kind of, just the other week we prioritised a parking plan for Island Bay in terms of what we can do as councillors to ensure that things like parking plans for around Haitaitai shops are done, because that was a big part of our conversation with the community around the roundabout. And I was just wondering what we can say to that relationship, or if there might be a formal way that Clive and Terry can follow up on this process without just seeing that they've delivered a petition and we might not see results for a very long time. So I was just wondering what sort of comment you had on that.
I don't know whether that's been answered really.
Well, I'll rephrase it. What is the formal way that Clive and Terry or other residents that have delivered petitions are able to follow up on things like the prioritisation of their resident parking plan? What's a way that they can engage with with us, even after you bring the paper at the beginning of next year, and what are the next steps?
I suppose the way that they can engage is to look at the framework that we've put in place. So we've looked at a number of factors for each and every parking management plan request, and we've ranked them according to what we think are the important things when considering a parking management plan, and we've given each one of those things a weighting. So the thing that influences where that parking management plan sits on the priority list is the weighting associated with it, and I suppose that could be the level of influence in terms of what we've weighted high and what we haven't weighted high.
Can I just add as well, our intention, as much as we do with our work program, that we'll be each year prioritising that list and putting on the website what we're planning to do in that financial year as well, minor works.
Okay, great. So it'll be very transparent.
Sorry, Chairperson, I just have one more question.
Sure.
In terms of short-term solutions, Councillor Condi asked the submitters, but things around, getting in a TR for a car share park, or they note in the petition the loss of a mobility park down there at the shops. Is that something we would be able to signal in this paper as maybe doing some temporary traffic resolutions?
So we could look at traffic resolutions, but the one thing that we need in order to substantiate a traffic resolution is sound data. Having just recently made the changes around Hataitai, we haven't collected any data of what that has done to parking to influence a traffic resolution. So we need to spend a few months just collecting some data in terms of understanding what that's done to the existing parking, and then we can put forward a traffic resolution to make some temporary accommodation.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks, Vita.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Free.
Okay, I have two questions. So one relates to Duncan Terrace resident parking. It's been asked for probably 3 or 4 years since we put in the Crawford Road cycle scheme. Does that request went in a long time ago. Does it still have to fit the new criteria? Because we have been waiting for quite a while.
Yeah, I suppose it's taken us a long time to actually figure out what the criteria is in the framework, because we had a number of requests. There's a lot of requests for parking and residence parking schemes and parking management plans. And so what we've done is we've actually ranked all of them in a similar manner to make sure that we're transparent and we're doing it all in a fair manner to prioritize things. So the Duncan Terrace request is there. I can't remember where it is on the list, but it is.
I just got another email about it today. I mean, I don't know how many emails.
Hang on.
Anyway,
we're on a petition at the moment.
Do we have enough resource in this area? Because it seems to me that if we are going to roll out parking and we get these associated requests for adjustments, that we may need some more resource.
Now that we have the prioritized list, part of the paper will talk to how long it will take us to deliver. So the next step that the team is currently working on is looking at, with our existing resources, how long it would take us to deliver all these parking management plans, and if we want to do it faster, how many additional resources we would need to bring in.
Thank you. And I have one practical suggestion and a question. There's a disused bus stop, bus shelter at Hataitai in a very convenient place. Would it be possible to work with Regional Council to see if we can get some bike parking in that?
We could look into that, yeah.
Yeah, because that just might help in the meantime.
Thank you. Councillor Condi, do you have any leftover questions?
I do. Can you give us an indication about how far away the first residence parking scheme is? So the new one. So if we were to deliver whatever turns out to be the top of the list, when's that likely to actually go in on the street somewhere?
It really depends, because parking management plans can be a street-based parking management plan where you're just considering the impact of a project to a street, which is similar to what we'd probably be doing in Hataitai, or it could be an area-based thing. This could mean that the parking management plan takes us a few weeks to deliver and costs less than $20,000, or it could mean that it takes us 2 years to deliver and costs upward of $600,000. So what we would need to do is do the prioritization list and then look at each one on its merit and actually see what level of parking management plan will be required for that one. So once we've got the list finalized, we can start looking into that and provide you with some timelines.
The one which we are currently doing is around Newtown and Bowen Streets in association with the transitional projects which are going in there.
And what are the timelines on those?
So this is straying a bit beyond the petition. Well,
I'm trying to get a handle on how long they're going to have to wait for residents parking. So
it does seem like we're having a very broad conversation.
Those projects we're looking to implement at the beginning of next year.
Well, I look forward to a paper coming to the Infrastructure Committee on this point. Right, Councillor Calvert.
Yeah, so since the policy was signed off in August 2020, how many local parking plans have been done?
Newtown and Bowen Street would be the first two off the rank.
And that's in relation to Let's Get Welly Moving, is it?
Yeah,
No,
okay. Look, I'm sorry, we are trying to deal with this petition.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just trying
Sorry,
to...
I think we are going well beyond.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to understand. So you're just saying there's only just two being done? None have been done since August 2020?
Yeah,
Okay.
those two have been completed in preparation for the Transition Cycleway program.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Thank you.
Okay, we will get some more report back on that later. Right, I presume you don't need to really introduce the report now?
No.
No. All right, who would like to move?
Can I ask another question, please?
Yes, Councillor Rush.
So,
Quickly.
Brad, this is a little bit confusing, really. If I were to move an amendment today that was passed saying that the council will move to install 8 residents parking on Hataitai Road in accordance with the parking policy, what would that do to your team and your priorities?
We would probably need to do it via traffic resolution because we don't have a parking management plan associated with it. So we need to do it via traffic resolution, which would mean that we would need to collect data in order to facilitate putting forward a traffic resolution for that. So it would just add another piece of work onto our workload.
Yeah, I mean, that data would be some survey from the residents there, I'm guessing, which we kind of do have.
It would be analysis of parking occupancy. So it would be an independent review of what the parking's doing there.
Yeah, we kind of did that with the roundabout, though. But anyway, okay, thank you.
Right, okay. So is someone going to move the paper, one of the Eastern Ward councillors? Presumably?
Well, I'll move it pro forma.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Someone is going to move an amendment?
I've just circulated an amendment.
Right.
If you want, I'll move it and I can move it.
I think that would be more efficient. Thank you. Yep.
Is that all right, Hattie? Cool. All right. I'll just thank the petitioners for coming in. I think we really appreciate hearing from them and that we are aware that this is an issue across the city. Really looking forward, obviously, to the paper that Brad and is going to be bringing us in the new year so that we can understand if we need to apply more resources to this, because we know that this is something we're hearing right across the city about a demand for residents parking, and we really want to be able to meet that need. Number 2, which has just been added there, is just asking officers to look at whether some sort of P240 short stay parking during the week would be helpful here. Now, it may not, but if the issue here is commuter parking, then introducing some sort of P240 during the day on weekdays might help ease the parking demands here. And also have just included that possibility of looking at a car share, which came up during the questions as well. So just incorporated those 2 suggestions that came out from councillors during our conversation with the petitioners. That's all I have to add. Deputy Mayor Free, were you going to second the paper?
I'm going to decline to, well, I can still second it and just choose how I vote, can't I?
That's right. You can do it pro forma.
I'm happy to second the paper. I'll speak now.
And we'll have questions.
I do think,
just of officers. Yeah, I've got questions.
I do think that this discussion has actually highlighted some issues that need further exploration. I don't want to add to the staff's workload right now by approving any amendments today. But I do think that there's a bigger issue here, which Brad has highlighted for us, which is actually about capacity to deal with these issues. And I understand that they are trying to prioritise, and I look forward to seeing that paper. I do think we've got a responsibility if we put in changes like bike networks and changes to actually follow up and try and make adjustments so that life does work for our residents as best it can. I know things are always a compromise, but to me this is bringing up an area in which we haven't got enough resource because we aren't able to actually respond in a timely way to these, I think, reasonable requests. And we need to be doing it in an organised and coherent fashion rather than just piecemeal, so that we do make sure we're putting the efforts where they're most needed. So thank you to the petitioners. Thank you to Sean for the work he's been doing with this particular problem, and thank you to our staff. But there's further work to be done, clearly.
All right, thank you. Right, Councillor Rush, do you have a question of officers about the meaning of the amendment?
Just
Otherwise you
about
can
the
address
implication, to be honest. I mean, I guess I'm just confused as to this. I'm assuming that there is a fast track way of putting in P240, but there doesn't seem to be to impose residence parking. So could that be explained? Because I would assume that the same sort of process issues that Brad just mentioned earlier would apply to P240 as well. So is that the case, Brad, or is it a different process when it's time limited?
No, it's a different process. P240 is a lot more straightforward for us to do without doing any significant investigation into residence parking schemes.
What is that?
The parking policy and the residence parking scheme and the parking policy is a lot newer to us in terms of the way we need to work and the amount of investigative work we need to do about the impact to the greater parking population, if you will, compared to just converting a park using our normal standard traffic resolution process into a P240.
Right, Councillor Day.
So my question's around the amendment. Just would staff be talking with the residents and the petitioners about the impact of this? Because I sort of got the sense that it might not really work for them if they are needing to park their car there all day, so it might not really solve their problem. So would that be part of this? You would go back and talk to them?
There would be a consultation for every traffic resolution, yeah.
Cool, okay, thank you.
Brad, can I just ask, how many other areas are you looking at such similar requests for, and just about equity, to make sure that we've got a order?
We've got in the order of about 25 that we're looking at the moment.
So this would just go at the bottom of the list, or would you prioritise?
No, it would be prioritised into the list, and I think it pops up somewhere halfway around.
Okay, and so you would make that decision, and yeah, I know, but just since there's some lists, I just want to make sure that the process is fair. And also, how much does this cost to do this sort of work?
We need to look at this particular one to understand how much work is involved around the consultation, data gathering, and that sort of thing. But like I said, it could be anywhere in the range of a simple one is a few $1,000s, and an expensive one is a few $100,000.
Can I ask why it's a couple of $100,000? That's horrifying.
Yeah, so that's based on the absolute worst case scenario of us analysing something like doing an area-based plan for the whole of Johnsonville and starting off with absolutely nothing up until we've got all the changes with signage and markings on the road and that sort of thing. And it also includes like a 3-step consultation and engagement process. So that's kind of the worst case scenario in terms of what we've looked at.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor O'Neill and Mayor Foster.
I just wanted to understand putting in some short stay parking, given residents have said they don't like to move their cars more often. Wouldn't this just incentivise more car usage?
Sort of Jill's question, Councillor Day's question.
I just want to understand the policy behind 240 parking, and then my other question would be, can we add in car share spaces or bike parking as a part of this in the TR process, or is that, when we're looking at those things, that's something that needs to be a part of a bigger parking plan?
It can be included, and it will go up for consultation. So if the 240 doesn't work for residents, they'll have an opportunity to tell us that.
Okay.
Right, thank you, Mayor Foster.
Brad, very quick question. If we did the 240, would that have any implications on the prioritisation for the resident parking scheme, given that we'd have, in a sense, given a partial answer, but not a complete answer? Would it tend to push it down or make no difference?
No, it would make no difference. Considering
Cool. Thank you.
criteria we're looking at, it would make no difference.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzsimons.
Yeah, I kind of just want to ask a question around how these things now come about, because as ward councillors, we all try to be responsive to our communities. And what it used to be is if someone came to you with a request for residence parking, you printed out a form and you got them to get their neighbours to sign it, and then you bring it to the council, and that would start the process of getting it. And I quite liked that as a ward councillor, because I could say to people, here's what you do, and it's very transparent, and was able to achieve it in some places. Now we've got the deputy mayor saying to people, bring a petition, which I think is good advice, because actually now that's how you do it. And what I've been saying to people is, we've got a new parking policy, it's a bit more considered now. So I guess I just want to understand the advice in light of those two sort of competing positions, because I want to tell people now to bring a petition, because that's the right, and actually we're back to the filling out the form, which I personally liked, because it meant that I was being constructive with my residents. So can we just kind of think, can we bring back the form? Because actually it's really good and it's transparent and people understand it, and it's probably easier to do it that way than make a big mission out of it.
I suppose this is it. It seems like a simple question, but it's actually quite a broad answer that I've got to give here. Is if we start allocating parking spaces based on, you want a residence parking scheme, I'm going to give you a resident parking scheme, and you, we don't understand what the broader implications are when we consider the parking policy and what the policy is trying to drive. So we might allocate residence parking schemes and afterwards realize that actually that wasn't the right thing to do, because it's driven us away from the parking policy and what the parking policy wanted to do. It's taken officers quite a bit of time to wrap our heads around how we want to approach this and how best to approach this, based on the fact that the council wants to make sweeping changes to the way parking is done in the city. And hopefully when we come in the new year, what we present to you will make it a lot more clearer in terms of what we're proposing.
Just a follow-up thing, can we maybe, because I understand that you don't want sort of political deals cut, because residents come, but actually there sort of probably needs to be a middle ground, because it's taking a bit long and the pressure is, building. So I'm just wondering if even maybe some guidance for residents, about if you want residents parking in your area, here's how you can get it, because actually come and give a very compelling submission like those gentlemen did, and it kind of gets you an amendment. So, I just sort of wonder if we just need to think about some guidance, and also whether we just need to reflect a little bit about whether the parking plan is biting off more than it can chew, and actually some kind of agreements around the price might be a better approach.
Yep, we can definitely look at some better guidance in that and come back with that.
And please don't clog up this committee with 10 petitions every month. Right, is that all the questions of officers? Then we'll go back into debate. Right, okay, who would like to speak? Councillor Calvert. You don't have to. Of course, it's not compulsory to speak.
Oh, look, I'm going to receive the information, and the thread of Councillor Fitzsimon's questioning, I actually agree with. Look, we can't, just because somebody comes and does a petition with just 23, it's not the best use of this committee's time. We need a better a system to deal with these. We have got these all over the city. I know I've got several in my ward, and I know some have been going for several years. So I'd be really I think it would be unequitable to actually approve this amendment, given that this is actually going to take work of officers. And is this the most prioritised requirement? Look, we put in a parking policy in August 2020, which is over 12 months ago, without the resources to deliver on it. And then we continue to pass more policies, and you have to wonder if we've got the resources to deliver on those as well. So I think this is a fundamental, it's throwing up a fundamental issue that whilst we can pass policies, have we actually got the people and resources to deliver on them? And this is one where we obviously don't. So tweaking at the edges is, why would we send officers off to investigate in 240-minute parking when we know there's going to be issues with residents already? And why would this particular area have any more priority over other areas that have been on the books for quite some time, waiting for action to be taken or officers to be able to do the work? So I think we need to have a better system in dealing with this, but approving this amendment is not the way to go about that. It's just going to be it's just going to be a political decision more than a decision based on fairness and equity.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Matthews.
Just very briefly, I think councillors that aren't on regs probably are not quite getting the full kind of picture here, because we actually do make changes like the sort that Councillor Condi has put in the amendment often. And so I know that there are bigger issues, for example, you know, in the suburbs and in our ward, Diane, of, you know, the Northland and the Wadestown, and, you know, those issues are there, but we are trying to, as we go, sort of make small adjustments to accommodate those things. So that work does happen. And so I think it's entirely consistent with that we would do that interim solution for Hataitai. But, you know, I do think we can't, it gets very pork barrel if we would all kind of prioritise our own area, because we all have areas where it's kind of problematic. So I'm very much in support of, in terms of the longer term process for officers to bring us that schedule. Because if we did it, we would all just say, do mine, and we end up with a big mess. So I understand the frustration here, given the roundabout and the changes. So I think this is a good middle path where we show that we are willing to do something more quickly, and we look at the broader issue of the resources that need to go into implementing the parking policies. Because, yeah, we do need to keep faith with our communities that the changes we're making, we still want to make things so residents can live their lives and make their choices, you know, and have broad transport choices for everybody that needs them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rush.
I'm just a bit confused, Madam Chair. If I can just explain what I was planning to do. So I've sent through a proposed amendment, which I had foreshadowed should this amendment fail, but Hayley has just reminded me that Jenny's amendment is being moved as part of the substantive, so I should make my own amendment. So I'm very confused at this stage. But what I think, having listened to Councillor Matthews and getting a sense, I think, for the feel of the room, I suppose, I will support the motion as put. With the time-limited parking. I am still scratching my head, and if Councillor O'Neill wishes to move my amendment, then I'm invited to do so. But, you know, people talk about having these types of issues all over the city, and I have also in Roseneath been asking for residence parking because we are seeing commuter parking coming and creeping up towards the school, and it's been causing problems. And so the reason why that this particular area has been highlighted is because this was part of the roundabout discussion. We know, do you want to remind, should I remind you about the roundabout discussion? And this was one of the issues that had been identified. And I guess what we're hearing and what I'm seeing is that although there's been some pain with the roundabout, broadly speaking, it's been a success, and I will be putting some drinks on at the Waitoa Social Club where we can sit and watch traffic move. But unfortunately, it could just be soured a wee bit if we don't move to try and address these people's issues, which were predictably seen, had been raised, and officers. My recollection is officers assured that we could address this post construction. So that's why I'm asking it to be fast-tracked. But I will support Councillor Condi's amendment on the basis that it puts a placeholder in there in the way that we can do, with a view to perhaps looking further. I actually think we should have residence parking all over the city. That's how it works in London, and I think we should be looking at that. But anyway, that's enough for another day.
Thank you. Any other speakers? So I just, you know, I'm always quite perplexed by these debates, that we have now spent nearly an hour talking about a parking issue in a time of climate change. So Councillor Condi, I'm a bit torn by your amendment because I'm happy to support the second part. I'm still just thinking about the first part, and I'm not sure whether it actually helps the residents. But yeah. very interesting that we, in Hataitai, which has got very good public transport and is just right next to Mount Victoria, I'm glad to hear the submitters talking about car share. That was really great. There is good public transport here. It is a walkable suburb, so I hope we can keep working on that. And Councillor Calvert, I think and Councillor Fitzsimons, your points were very well made. I do not want petition after petition after petition. This is not actually fair. It just basically means that those who are most can get in touch with their local councillor and know the processes, get what they need, and I don't think that's the way to do it. And I also think, if we're really going to move to zero carbon, then we need quite a different way of thinking about it. Right, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. I just want to start by thanking Clive and Terry. This is an issue that they've spoken about for a really long time, and they've actually gone out and gone door to door for the other people in the area. This issue came up and has been going on for quite a number of years. And what we looked at was, no, we can't get anything doing. Every time we try to bring up a residence parking issue, officers have said bring a petition. So that's how we've got here. And I'd also just like to note that the Hataitai Residents Association received this really well and have been asking for it for a good while. So we have tried quite a few different channels. We receive, sometimes on average about 40 traffic resolutions per regs meeting, and it is a really fun time. And particularly with the Hataitai roundabout, we did look at the loss of parking. We lost mobility park down there at the shops as well, and I've certainly been hearing feedback from people. I will note that on Hataitai Road, we were able to remove a bus stop that wasn't used all the time and open up about 2 more car parks in the area on Hataitai Road, just down from where the petition was collected. At this point in the process, I'd like to just pose a question to Councillor Condi. I'm wondering if, noting that we can have a look at this during regs, but I would also like to see us investigate car share parks or bicycle parking as a part of this as well, because I think the short stay parking kind of encourages residents to get up, get out, drive the car around for a bit and then come back, which is not, carbon forward. So I'd just like to hear maybe a bit of your thinking around that and how that impacts our scene there. Councillor Rush, it is also my favourite daytime activity to sit at Waitoa and watch the traffic go around the roundabout. But yeah, I take your point, and I also really wanted to see some residents parking here, but I'm satisfied with officers' response around prioritisation, and I think we do need a proper parking plan and substantial data, even if that has to take us a couple of months before we can qualify for a few more of these processes. But yeah, so yeah, cheers and thanks, councillors, for listening to us drone on about parking in Hataitai for an hour. Thank you for your patience.
So, yeah, very briefly, I would actually like to ask if with the leave of the meeting and leave of the mover, we may be able to separate the car share from the first part and also add investigate bike parking. So the second bit would be investigate with car share providers possibility of car share parking space and some additional installation of some bike parking.
Yeah.
Well, can we have it in 2 parts, please, if that's okay? Okay, well, can we separate the 2 bits? Okay, that's fine if we don't, if this.
Okay, it was a helpful suggestion. Right of reply.
Thanks, everyone. I guess I would start by kind of like acknowledging Councillor Matthews' comments, which is, I think I kind of moved this amendment feeling like I was at regs, and that was probably a mistake. And I guess just inviting those of you who don't normally come to regs and sit in on traffic resolutions to come and join us occasionally. To come back to Councillor Rush's kind of point and confusion about this is that the new residence parking scheme is new. It is going to it's taking officers time to work through how it's going to be rolled out and how we're going to operationalise that, and that's going to take time. It has taken time, and it's great that we're going to see a paper in the new year. I can tell it's going to be hotly debated. It's certainly, I know we've all been hearing from our residents about it. I think it's. My intention in bringing this amendment was just to try and as you said, Councillor Rush, get a toehold here on something that it's not ideal. I'm not trying to say this is the solution. It's not as good as residents parking, absolutely. It does mean that residents would have to get out and move their car once a day. That is the reality of these things. And I also acknowledge that the residents may not want this. I just want to emphasise the fact that officers investigating it doesn't mean that they have to follow through on it. I would hope that Brad's staff will start by going out and talking to the residents and the petitioners to see if this is something that they would want as an interim solution. And if they don't, that's fine. That can be the end of it. So this doesn't have to be, this amendment doesn't mean that we will definitely bring a traffic resolution. It just means that we could have some conversations about this as a possible interim solution. Because, reading between the lines of how far down this is on the prioritisation list and how long some of these residents parking things might take, it could be years until we get to this street, potentially. And so this is something that we might be able to do because P240 is an established thing. We do traffic resolutions for this all the time. This is something we could do faster. Talking to the equity issue, I think that that's something that would be interesting to hear from staff about whether this would be an alternative for those low priority residents parking areas where we know that commuter parking is the pressure. So perhaps when we get the paper on residents parking in coming to us in the new year, whether this would be an alternative for some of those streets that we know we won't get to them for a long time, and we could quickly come in and do something like this. I was thinking about at Riggs we had Garden Road in front of us the other day, and that's another street where they're definitely seeing a lot of pressure of commuter parking that's pushing out residents and making their lives difficult. The intention of the amendment was just to try and find a way to get something happening sooner than we can. But I definitely agree with all the comments about equity and that we need to have a proper debate about this when the paper comes back. And there's clearly issues about whether this has been sufficiently resourced so that we can deliver on residents' expectations about how quickly we can move this out. The reason I didn't include bike parking here is it doesn't require a traffic resolution, so I think that's something you can just take up offline. I don't think that that was the mood of the meeting, so I think it's just here the way that it is. So I would just again say that to staff that the intention here isn't that definitely a traffic resolution gets developed, but that we go back and talk to those petitioners about whether this might be a short-term interim solution that they would be interested in taking forward. There would certainly be a lot more conversation and consultation before this could happen on street. A TR would have to be designed and consulted on and come back to us for a decision. So there's plenty of time for us to hear whether this is actually a compromise solution that the residents would be interested in.
Thank you. Right, we're going to take those separately and we'll take a division, please. Thank you. So just if we can vote on one first, please.
Is it up on screen somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah. Is number one just receive the information?
Sorry, receive the information, and then number two is about requesting officers to investigate the P240.
Is it up on screen somewhere, Councillor? I can't see it.
Yeah, I'll read it out to you. Okay, just if you can't see it online, that's fine.
Why can't I see it? Oh, there it is.
Yep, okay, you can share it. This is just number one, Councillor. Liz Kelly and Sean.
Sorry, I could see it, but it was only
just
it
receive
was
the
one
information.
sentence.
You're just voting to receive the information, number one.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Is Liz there? Yeah, yep. Great, that's unanimous, thank you. And then we're going to vote on number two, request officers to investigate the 240 and around investigating car share.
What about bikes using the bus tunnel? Throw it out there.
Right, so that passes with 4 against, Councillor Calvert, myself, Councillor Wolf and Councillor Young. Thank you very much. It's now morning tea, 15 minutes, and then hopefully we'll speed things up a little bit. Hilary Fowler, welcome. Vida back again. If you'd just like to introduce the report, then we'll have questions. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou. So the report on the Evans Bay Stage 2 project, the changes here will complete the Tahitai cycleway all the way from Miriama Town Centre into the city. This is the final stage, which we've been out to talk to the community about the traffic resolutions. There was about a 63% support of the traffic resolutions, and the main issues which came through was around parking and generally around the recreational services. So we have made a number of changes to, or proposing in this paper that a number of changes are made based on the community submissions. We have proposed that there are an additional 13 car parks made mostly in the southern section, additional 2 short stay car parks by Hataitai Beach, and an additional 4 car parks near the Greta Point Cafe. We've also, in the Greta Point area, proposing to move the pedestrian crossing a little bit further north, which creates better visibility for cars approaching that pedestrian crossing. So those are the sort of the main points that I just wanted to highlight in introducing this paper. Looking forward to once moving forward with this so that we can complete this section of a very important part of our bike network plan.
Kia ora. He pātai, and Councillor Condie is first.
Thank you. Just 2 questions. One of the things that was identified in the paper is that we're going to do some more work with the yacht club and marina area as a project to look at that off-street parking and how can it be better used. Can you just tell us a little bit more about who's running that, when it will start, what we envisioned for that?
Yeah, I'll hand over to Hilary to answer that, who has been doing the work with the yacht club and Scouts.
Push that button. Yeah, so it'll all come out. So, we'll procure a consultant to do the detailed design phase, and that'll be part of their brief. And we envision it being kind of like a co-design, really, with the yacht club and the users there, because they obviously use it the most and maybe have an idea of how much the parking needs to be for trailers and how much, shorter parking for cars and things like that. Also working quite closely with the Parks Department because they manage that space.
And then I just had a question about this change to the substantive, the suggestion that we might be able to, I believe, move the footpath so that we could introduce a few more parking spaces near the dog exercise area. Can you just give us some information about how what would that entail in terms of moving the footpath and whether that's a feasible thing for us to do?
So we'd have to investigate the feasibility, but it is something we can investigate. But it would involve moving the footpath closer to the dog park fence. So at the moment there's a bit of space between the footpath and the dog park fence, and so it's encroaching into that space. And then the car parks would go where the footpath currently is. We'd have to look at underground services. I note that there's a lighting pole there which would have to relocate as well. So we'd just have to investigate the feasibility of that and how much it would cost.
Any others? Councillor Foon.
Kia ora, thank you for the great work and really enjoyed the engagement we had with people on this. My question is around staying in touch. Do we have a plan to stay in touch with the businesses along the route and the childcare, just to kind of get a sense check with them, get observations so that we can use that for future understanding? But is there a post-engagement strategy with businesses, or can we do one?
Just so on a high level, we do have on our website an area where people can go in and register, and we do regular updates on the different projects on there. So most of the people that we have submitted during consultation will be getting updates through that stream. And then, as Hilary said, there are some that we'll be engaging more closely with as we go through the detailed design. Anything you want to add?
So we haven't written a strategy or anything yet, but that'll be considered at the next stage, and I imagine we'll be liaising mostly with people who are directly affected, particularly like the yacht club, because they're more directly affected rather than maybe the childcare centres, which aren't as affected.
I think it's also part of that shift that we're generally trying to make with the way that we're approaching the bike network and the comm strategy that we're doing around that.
Kia ora. Right, Councillors Young, Rush and Calvert.
So I have two things. So first of all, my concern is that it's not just about pedestrians, motorists and cyclists. It's also about the swimmers and boaties. I mean, that's a hugely important part of our sort of our water sports area, having done my first water skills 5 meters or 5 yards in 1961 or something. But also, do we have any comparative figures on how many swimmers, water sports people there are as compared to the number of cyclists and potential cyclists?
Not formally. We did do some observation studies of the beach and around Cog Park. And
I hope it was the right time of year.
yes, well, it was in December. It was about this time last year, and we did make sure we were there on good days when the weather was very good and the beach was very, very busy. As for expected number of people riding bikes, so at the moment it's already pretty high, probably about maybe 500 a day, but we're expecting once this is a complete route all the way from Miramar, then we'd expect over 1,000 quite easily a day.
Okay, so my second one is just a request, which is slightly off the wall, but the Evans Bay Yacht Club was the terminal for our international flying boat connection to Australia between 1938 and 1956, and I just thought it would be an ideal place to put some sort of plaque recognising that. I can give you a lot more information about that if you want it, but it's a significant part of our transport history, and it would just be a great opportunity to make people aware of it.
Sorry,
Thank you, Councillor Young, for your history lesson. Appreciate that. Councillor Rush.
It's also a request. It's not just a letter.
I think the officers have heard it. Thank you. Councillor Rush, no amendments.
Resisting the temptation to talk about history, Councillor Young. To be in the same sentence. So just on the numbers, so Hillary, you mentioned 1,000. Is that the definition of success then? If we double the numbers that we currently have, we'll call that a successful project that's money well spent. Is that what you're suggesting?
So I think that goes a bit more back to the bike network plan in general, where there has been a decision to increase the level of service for cyclists and also regionally targets for mode shift, and to enable that mode shift we need to make the infrastructure so that it's safe and convenient for those people. So at the moment we are working through finalising the bike network plan. Once the consultation is finished, we haven't gone into any details at the moment around what a target is, but we're focused on creating that infrastructure.
Okay. Well, I'm seconding the paper, so don't worry, I'm not going to go crazy on this, but I just thought that it would be useful to understand, because I won't say
all right,
anything.
you can speak in debate. Right, Councillor Calvert.
Just curious why we're using external agency to design our engagement survey, not our own internal resources.
So we worked with them. We designed it together, the engagement survey, but that's their expertise. They do this kind of thing all the time, and they did a lot of the online stuff as well, like the website and all the analysis and things as well.
Just as we use consultants for designing the path itself, we also use consultants to...
It's just, I saw that there's some statistical information how it's displayed, and I know that you don't normally display, and this has been raised before on similar feed graphs, where you're displaying information that I believe is not statistically appropriate to display when you've got low numbers. And there's one graph which shows sort of low numbers, and so that's not statistically suitable. So I'm just saying I was just surprised that we didn't have our own internal teams with that expertise involved.
I'll look into that.
Thank you.
Right. Deputy Mayor Free, if you'd like to move. Thank you.
Thank you. It gives me a lot of great pleasure actually to move this paper, and looking forward to hearing what Councillor Rush has to say too in his speech when he seconds it. I first of all would actually like to thank the staff. I always forget, but this time I read this paper and I actually thought this is an amazingly clear, well-written paper, and what I appreciated too was your responses, seeing your responses to the submitters' feedback, and I think that's the ultimate in transparency, is we've actually been able to see how many themes have been and the general sorts of responses you've made to those themes, and really good to have that there for the record. So I'd really like to thank you, Hilary. I know you've worked for a very long time on this project. Also Daniel, Paul, I can see you down there, and Vida and Liam. Thank you. I think this is a really excellent piece of work. The forum, thank you for mentioning it, Councillor Flume. The forums were a really good time, I thought, for all of us. Incredibly positive. People there with very different perspectives and views, but a real willingness to acknowledge this is a great project and how can we actually work together to find solutions. And I thank the staff for coming back with a little bit of extra car parking, because I know that for some of us car parking is a necessary evil. But actually this is an area which has got a huge number of recreational resources, a dog park, scouts, yacht club, a beautiful little beach that families like to use. And it is a place where, we need accessibility as well. It's a beach where people can use it who actually come with mobility issues, because it's easy to get into the water. So it's important that we do think about all the different users. And I think those 13 car parks will be really well received. And there might be also reasonably easily found a few more next to the dog park, which will just add to that recreational resource. So I'm pleased that the staff think they can even do a little bit more to find some extras. And all of these extra car parks have been found without compromising what we're trying to achieve with the cycleway, which is great, because we do need a high quality cycleway, and that came through as part of the submissions. I'm pleased that there'll be some more work done on the parking that's near to the beach, the marina, the yacht club, and also the freedom camping. I know there are some discussions about how we can manage that, because one of the things that came up is that the yacht club has regattas 4 times a year with a really increased need for parking. So not too much more to say, except it's going to be great to have this as a complete route. It's a really significant route. It's part of Te Ara Nui o Pōneke, the Great Harbour Way. We've been able to really feature the environment through the work that's been done on this route, and the improvements that have been made to Cobham Drive to provide habitat for penguins and to provide resources within the revetment wall for aquatic life and aquatic plants. This used to be an area, especially around Cobham Drive, that was really neglected, a really degraded natural environment, and now through the work that's been done, it's actually a feature. And I see people enjoying it and using it all the time. So I think we can be really jointly proud of the work that's been done on this. It really is going to be a jewel in Wellington's crown. And again, I say thank you to the staff and to my colleagues for your support to date. And I'm sure that this will be, pretty well received by most of us, if not all. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rush. Do you wish to speak now?
I'll say a couple of brief words, Councillor Pennant. I have to say I'm seconding with some trepidation, but I think on balance that this will be a really great landmark, iconic piece of infrastructure. Without doubt, the whole area looks much better. So visibly, it's attractive, and obviously the section that's not being done will improve that area as well. I am still quite reserved about what the uptake's going to be. It's the most beautiful day of the year since summer. I dropped my daughter at daycare opposite Miwa at 8:30 this morning and managed to see 13 cyclists, a most gorgeous day up and down. Now that's obviously just a snapshot. I do know that there are several hundred that do utilise the cycleway and even the parade each day, and that will increase. But it is very, very difficult riding into that nor'wester, without doubt. And I had my bike out a couple of days ago, having coffee with none other than Julianne Genter, and had to get off it to ride it, get it back to where I live. So without doubt, the hills are still a problem for many. Nevertheless, I do think that this will make the city much, much more attractive, vibrant, the sort of stuff we want. And and I do want to thank officers. There are two real issues here that I can see in the community: the beach and the sailing club. And I do know that the officers have done their best to accommodate them both. I've just spoken to the yacht club. He's pretty happy. Does want to continue with the food and camping discussion. And I also look forward to what we might be able to do around the dog park. So thank you very much, officers. I'm very happy to support.
Kia ora, Councillor O'Neill now.
Kia ora. I just wanted to start by thanking our community for engaging in such an excellent process. We've received a lot of really positive feedback, and to the engagement team for all of their work here. This project has been really awesome to be able to work on. We've come a really long way in just over a year in terms of, as a suburb, shifting the debate towards at least car dependency and moving toward mode shift in the future. I'm really pleased with officers that they've been able to take a really critical lens on accessibility for people of all modes recreating and commuting in the area, as well as a lot of residents as well. I am a firm believer that we need to have a stronger focus on the health crisis when we look at the cost of maintaining on-street parking and the like, and really happy that we're able to come to a compromise and not impact the proper and full awesome cycleway package that we've got coming through here. The eastern suburbs have the largest group of car commuters, more than Ngaio and Kahurori. And I just find it pretty astonishing that we have a lot of this beautiful coast, and this is actually a really easy win for the road being quite wide that it is. It's incumbent on us to see forward and look to the future, and it's not just a recreation space, as Sean Rush just mentioned. It is a massive travel and access point. If we lose access to driving through our Maunga, then we lose access to a large part of the city. So really happy to have this infrastructure set up in the form of a cycleway. Just lastly, thank my ward colleagues for bringing the amendment as a part of the substantive. I think it's really awesome, and just to reflect again that we had a beautiful young woman who was 8 years old who came and spoke to us and had a really excellent constructive discussion with other members of the yacht club, and just to thank people for the generosity of their time and seeing others' perspectives. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Foon, and then Councillor Wolf. Thank my colleagues for the statements made ahead. What I would like to add to that is that, I would like to see some kind of follow-up service, even post the implementation, to businesses, just to check in. I think even as a courtesy, I think it would be a really nice thing for council to do, to keep an engagement, respecting that we're all got time, but I think that would help. But what I did want to comment on was we had the skate community at our table, and I'm really enjoying their requests coming through, that when we're designing the infrastructure, that we're looking for ways that we can accommodate that community, and really that makes those public spaces a place for all. So just rooting for that from over here. Any other speakers? Can I just also acknowledge the staff? You've done a great job, great report. I'd like to acknowledge Deputy Mayor Free too, because as our wards intersect, I do enjoy walking down your cycleway. I know how hard you've worked around the east, and it is going to be fantastic. And I was just double checking with staff. This is one of the projects which is not reprioritised. So the design work is going to be done next year, and then we can see construction. So to those cyclists and other allies out there, we're getting on and doing the mahi on this one, and we just need to do more and more to get that connected cycleway up and running. Deputy Mayor Free.
Yeah, I don't really think it's necessary to have a right of reply. I appreciate the fact that we've all kept it quite short and sweet, because it should be short and sweet on this one. There really isn't terribly much not to like. By the way, just a little response to Councillor Young. History, we actually have an invitation pending to go up to the Tramways Museum sometime in December or January as a group, anyone who would like to come to see the the trams at QE2 Park, and that comes from the association that looks after them up there. Just a little plug. Right, thank you.
Thank you very much, and we will take a division as well. Thank you.
Sorry, can we have the everything up so we can see exactly what we're voting on?
Sure, it's the whole lot. Sorry, Councillor Young. Can you see the screen?
It's coming.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is Mayor Foster there? No. Right, he's had to duck out. Right, well, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, colleagues. Right, now my Henry Peach, a warm welcome to you. You're going to come and introduce the paper on the National Emission Reduction Plan. Thank you.
Thanks. It's my first time at the actual desk.
Oh, sorry. We won't bite.
Just one thing to flag before I start is the wrong version of the submission was uploaded to the website, and a track change version of it was sent round to you last night. Hayley, I think you may have tabled the correct version for councillors now. Just to reassure you, the changes are not significant, so they're mostly like just making things a little bit more constructive in places, clarity, typos, and probably the most substantive changes were to the waste section, where more detail was added around like the conditions that would need to things that would need to happen to make to achieve the outcomes that we were talking about. But I'm happy to answer some questions around that. So just to summarise the paper itself, as you'll probably know, the government prepares this emissions reduction plan in response to the Zero Carbon Act, and it's meant to outline how they're going to meet their emissions budgets, which is the amount of emissions they're allowed to release over the next 15 years. It's meant to be sort of quite a detailed plan. At this point, it's just a discussion document. It doesn't show how they're going to get all the way there. And so they've come out asking for more advice on how they're going to do that. Yeah, so I'm happy to take your questions about
Kia ora.
submission.
Right, councillors, any questions? Oh, it might have been a very, very clear submission. Right, thank you for all your hard work.
I've got my hand up, Councillor.
Sorry, Councillor Rush, and then Councillor Fung.
Sorry, I'm just glancing quickly through the changes that came in late last night. Just, Henry, looking at the deletions from the first paragraph, transition pathway, I thought the questioning the term affordable was a sensible thing to do, because it does seem to me to be the big opt-out, right? You know, and so I'm just wondering, is that particular point covered somewhere else, or is there a reason why we're not pursuing that line of questioning?
I think we just sort of thought maybe it was a little bit on the nose, and like in retrospect, so took it out. But yeah, I mean, obviously if you'd like to keep it in there, that's
yeah. I'd actually like to keep it in there. So okay, so that's interesting. We'll have a discussion about that. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Councillor Rush?
I guess, Henry, I did send a note to Alison, it was last night, asking about whether is there a role for a state agency, and just wondering if that had been floated anywhere in your response or in the government's proposals.
I mean, Liam might be a better place to talk about that. I guess as a team, we're kind of hesitant around proposals to like restructure central government because it's not something that we probably have great expertise in. But so that would be my probably our team's position. And then obviously as councillors, you're probably best placed to make those kind of suggestions. Lee,
yeah, I mean, it's absolutely best. Thanks, Henry, to come from council if you were interested. But I think, Councillor Rush, the point I made to my officers when your question came through last night was Araaki, which is the new energy development centre in Taranaki, which is a kind of a pseudo-crown private sector partnership that tries to take ideas and this isn't about lab coats, this is about people in overalls developing new tech, new green tech opportunities, but that is based in Taranaki. But as you know, I think it's $44 million over about 10 years, supported by this government to set up and run the ideas into actually pragmatic industry-based solutions. And whether you were aware of that or not, I assumed you had, but...
Yeah, I had a different sort of thing in mind, a Ministry of Works or something to actually to lead this more than just the research. But that's cool. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Foon.
Just to check in really with the waste team, was this worked on in collaboration with them?
Yeah, they offered quite a lot of constructive suggestions.
I'm sure they did.
And I think because they're preparing a submission they're going to talk to you about tomorrow,
you can
so
see
they were thinking about
alignment.
it.
No, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, Henry.
Any other questions? Right, thank you. And actually, thank you, Councillor Rush, for raising that issue, because I'm actually going to put the cost-effective thing back in. So I'm... Yeah, oh, sorry, of course, Councillor Fitzsimons.
Yeah, just on that. I mean, I when I read the submission, I felt it was really good, but I did think it had a bit of a snarky tone, and that's kind of why, when removing that thing about, this seems reasonable to assume, given ministers frequently comment about the, you wouldn't usually kind of take on a minister like that, the submission, you'd go high and make the point. So I'm happy to see it back in, but I do kind of think, like, if I look at people like James Shaw, I feel like he's doing a lot, and actually by this council sort of trying to snark it up with him, I didn't love it, and so I was quite pleased to see it go, and I think we can make the same point without the kind of having a go at a minister. I just don't think we're likely to be listened to if we say that.
Sure, so we can deal with that in debate, and I will speak to that point. But I think if we can just put the wording back in without... just in a neutral way. Yeah, because I accepted the reasoning around affordable versus cost effective. Okay, so sorry, look, I'll just quickly now move the motion, and then I'll just have to come up with some wording quickly. So look, I first of all would like to give a big thanks to staff. This is a comprehensive submission, and of course staff have done a great deal of work on this in this particular area. Very, very comprehensive advice, and I'm sure the government will find it very helpful. Councillor Fitzsimons, it seems that your question is a great place to start, because actually I could see the frustration of officers, and I know there is some shared concern around the country that that civil society, local government has given good advice to government, and I think there's just been a bit of disappointment that action hasn't been taken forward. Now, obviously, this is one of my colleagues I'm talking about too, but like we just, I guess, I'm sure we can maybe just do a little bit of editing to address your concerns, Councillor Fitzsimons. I think that's a fair enough point. But I do think also there is a place for holding the government to account. They have had a lot of advice. And I think the officer's point actually was places absolutely, and I feel sorry for them that they have to then keep writing, please refer to our previous submission, because we've already said it. But nevertheless, look, I don't want to be harsh on the government too, because I know how hard they're working and they've had a lot of catch up to do. So look, at least it's starting now, and there's no point in saying what should have been done 20 years ago. It's always one of my concerns. So I really appreciate the comprehensive nature of this submission. I really like the fact it covers everything, transport, energy, building work, waste. Yay, waste is in there as a building block of a sustainable economy. That is very, very good. So look, I am just going to have to, maybe little 3, sorry to be doing this on the fly, and just basically saying, reinstate the wording around ensuring measures are cost effective rather than affordable. I will speak to that first. I absolutely agreed with the officers. what we always find in the environmental area is that we don't end up getting the environmental wins we need because it's not affordable. And actually what we've got to now look at is what is the cost of not taking action. So I thought cost effective was quite a neutral way of putting that. Have you helped us, Councillor Conti? Fantastic. Because of course we want to get to the initiatives which are the best bang for buck, but they have to be put in. And of course we've just done that ourselves. I just had hoped that I wouldn't need to move these two little amendments. This is just about making sure that we say to them, look, can you front foot your emission cuts to 2030? The reason I'm concerned is that I don't want to give any more leeway. Every 5 years that we put out means there's not so much action. So I know they've got their 15 years, but I would prefer that we stick with our wording from the Declaration of a Climate Emergency from 2019, where we really were saying 2030 is where we've got to make some significant gains. And I'm confident that we will. And look, question 27, I know there was some cross-referencing around there, but I do think that we need a very, very strong message to government that the funding tools that local government has to deal with climate change are not adequate at the moment. And it's, look, maybe that was, remember, I think we didn't talk to the Productivity Commission in the end, but actually they said that rates were an okay funding mechanism, and they are not. We're going to need billions of dollars to defend our city, to green it up, and it's just not enough to say that rates and maybe some funding from NZTA will help. So, look, I don't want to, I hope this is just one paragraph. It won't cause too much work for the officers before having to submit it, but I would just like us to strengthen that up, just to say, look, there are some other tools that we need to do our job very well. Now, to the next point, I just want to give, I will just, but we're just going to put in about the deleted paragraph around affordability, but we will make sure it is worded very politely. So I have great pleasure in moving 3, and I'd of course like to acknowledge this, the Aotearoa Collective. This is an amazing campaign, just absolutely what we need. I'd like to thank my colleague Councillor Paul and Councillor Nash, because they were some that initiated this campaign, and Councillor O'Neill has also been working with the campaign. As someone who is absolutely passionate about public transport and loves it more than anything, I just think we have to do everything we can to get more people onto public transport. And we know there are a number of barriers. 1 is reliability of service, 2 is the level of service, and 3 is the cost. So this campaign basically, it's not free, as my old colleague Ian McKinnon loved to remind us. It will be free to users, but obviously the cost needs to be picked up somewhere else. Will be available to tertiary students, community service card holders, and under 25s. This is absolutely important. We know that we need to back our student community. They are an important part of our community. We need to back young people, those particularly under 25. Even with those who are not working, they've obviously got other significant costs, including rent. So anything we can do to get people onto public transport is a good thing. And we know that once we get people, when they're young, they're more likely to continue as they age, which would be fantastic. Obviously, the focus on community service card holders is critical. This is the most vulnerable group of people in our community. We know that the poorest in our community don't have cars. We've seen some of the data, so we need to make sure it's as affordable as possible. Now, the funding of this is a tricky one, and this is why this amendment is coming now. I was wanting to bring it during the fossil fuel-free debate, but we just did need some conversations with Greater Wellington because it isn't free. So as I understand it, there will be a big vote next year to fund this national emission reduction plan, and I would hope that the government will look at this as a major climate justice initiative to ensure that that people do have better access to public transport. Now, Greater Wellington, in our discussions, it may mean if we do some sort of trial that they'll be paying half the cost, and it's some very rough estimates of 25 million to cover the cost for tertiary students and community service card holders, so that would be about 13.5 million on their books. Nevertheless, I would argue that this is so important that this has to be a priority of the government, and we know that in this reduction plan that transport is a very big part of it. And some of our Greater Wellington colleagues have pointed out too, of course, that we do need to sort out the whā, because we also need more bus drivers. We need to pay them properly so that we've got extra services to take all these wonderful extra people on the services. So there's quite a lot of issues that need to be reduced. I appreciate it may look like we're calling for something which we're not going to fund. That will be a discussion for later, but I do think it's important that we support this really great campaign, and that that we take a practical step on climate change. That is enough from me. Who would like to second? Councillor Paul, would you like to speak?
Yeah, kia ora tātou. I just really want to thank the climate change team at Wellington City Council. I think you guys always do great work. This is an excellent submission, and you guys are a real world-class, innovative climate team, and we're really lucky to have you guys. And big shout out to Alison Howard for just epic mahi. It's been awesome seeing Alison come into this role and just really be ambitious about it and really lead us in the right direction. So kia ora. Yeah, it's a really good submission. I think next triennium will be a really good time to see the delivery of all of the projects that will really deliver on our climate safe future and that will reduce our emissions. So I'm hoping we have some more hustlers around the table so that we can fast track some of that Let's Get Wellington Moving mahi, and fast track some of those NPSUD requirements and build lots of housing so people can live close by to where they work and where their friends are and everything. Just on the public transport stuff, that's really important. Back in my VUSA days, we worked on a campaign called Fairer Fares, where we pushed for free public transport for tertiary students, and we managed to get a 25% discount for tertiary students. Yeah, and so on that point, I think it's important for campaigns to really push for the really big deal, like the biggest thing they can get, and I would say really we should be advocating for universal free public transport and acknowledge that public transport is a really important part of our climate futures, and that being free and accessible to all people is important. And starting from that point as a campaign, I think you negotiate these specific parts for communities like tertiary students and community service card holders and under 25s. But I think that kind of universalism is really important in our climate transition as well, but obviously you need to target limited resource towards those most in need. So it's really cool to see those groups singled out. And the Deputy Mayor just leaned over and said, will you be eligible for that? And I just said, I might not be still under 25 when this happens, but I maybe will be a tertiary student. So yeah, so thanks for all of that. And I thought the comments on the tone was really interesting, and something I really respect about Minister Shaw is that often when I get called up to really grill the government on their climate plans, I go pretty hard. And what I really respect about Minister Shaw is that he takes it on the chin, because he knows he has a big parcel of work in front of him, and that he needs that public pressure so that he can go back to his officials, he can go to his colleagues, his ministerial colleagues, and say, look, I'm getting the pressure put on me, we need to do this faster, we need to commit a lot more. So I mean, I think he can handle it, and I know that the climate team have got really good relationships with that minister and those teams as well. So ngā mihi for all the work, really appreciate it, and good stuff. Let's keep going in this direction.
Councillor Free, Deputy Mayor Free.
Well, when I came to council, a big part of why I came onto council was actually the buses, and then I discovered that we don't do everything much at all with the buses. But we are. I'm just picking up though. I will only speak to the fares part of the submission because I know there's more to it. But I'm just picking up on the three things that somebody said are you need reliability of service, you need the level of service, and you need it to be affordable. And our chair said, actually, we're asking for money, but we're not putting any money in. But we are actually spending a bomb to make the bus service more reliable. So I think we've got skin in this game. There's no point in us actually having a wonderful infrastructure for the buses to be more reliable if people can't afford to take them. And I want to see lots and lots of people using the buses, and I want the buses to be a real connector for people, because not everyone can ride a bike. I'm passionate about that as well, but I know that isn't for everybody. And the people that do get the free buses at the moment are the gold card holders, and boy, do they use it, and they use it when it's free. So I am really thinking that it's a good thing that we are targeting these groups and supporting this mahi to try and get them free fares. Beyond anything else, transport is an enabler. It actually enables people to get to their education, to get to their doctor's appointments, to get to their friends, to use the things in the city. And it's really important that we have a city that does do that. So I totally thank the people who've worked on this. It hasn't been me this time, but I'm so supportive of this. Thank you.
Councillor Calvert, Day, and then O'Neill.
Thank you. Again, I'm just going to talk about the public transport, and it's good that we're calling on government to fund, but I think there's also something else this council can do, and that's put a bit more pressure on Greater Wellington Regional Council. They've cancelled a number of services permanently back in July. We really don't know how many they did cancel, but that's why their results are looking a bit better, and really they're not going to be able to run any mass rapid transit if they can't run the existing bus services well enough. And we know we've got issues with reliability and frequency. So I do look forward to this council also working more closely with Greater Wellington Regional Council to make sure that the buses that ratepayers are funding already actually do run.
Very succinct, thank you. Right, Councillor Day.
Kia ora. I also support all of this and really grateful to the staff for their mahi on this submission. It's a fantastic submission and great to see the way that it's sort of unfolded and come through. So you're really happy to support all the amendments. Very excited to see the free fares kaupapa coming through. It's one that I've talked about as well over the years, and really know that this makes a huge difference to people in many ways. We have a lot of young people who manage to come into the city, often in the evening, and then get stuck with no money to get home, and means that the situations can end up pretty unsafe. So I think we won't even know how far this sort of initiative could actually reach for the opportunities that it would provide for our young people in the community and people who are trying to study as well. We have adult tertiary students who are often having to take a massive hit financially to go and do some study, and if this makes it a bit easier to do that, that's a really cool thing too. But yeah, really want to acknowledge and thank the Aotearoa Collective for the mahi they're doing. It's really cool to have it coming from the grassroots, from the community. So very, very happy to support, and I don't want to see this as us having a go at anybody. It's about the community coming together and collectively saying this is actually a really important human right in this day and age for people to be able to get from A to B in a way that is good for the environment and equitable. So, and Councillor Rush, you really need to put your mic on mute.
I was just about to say that, thank you. Right, and Councillor O'Neill has an important speech to make, so thank you.
Kia ora koutou. It is an absolute pleasure to see this moved as a part of the substantive. I will be mostly talking about the Free Fares campaign because it was a little over 4 years ago when, back in my heydays of Generation Zero, when we were setting up the stuff that we stripped down on to our underwear and jumped on trains at Wellington train station to talk about the bare cost of public transport. And I just wanted to thank the fact that the Fair Fares campaign was led by Tam and Marlon and a lot of the people at USA, and this time this campaign has mostly come about in the initial from Morsa, which is really awesome to see Massey Students Association leading in as a part of the Aotearoa Collective for Public Transport. Councillor Pennant, you mentioned in terms of who raised the costs, and I just wanted to restate that this is specifically about asking that the government should put as a priority under the ERP for budget 2023 to provide free public transport nationwide to under 25s, community service cardholders and tertiary students at all hours. And we've explained the justification for a lot of these groups. I also just wanted to point out that equitable public transport is a really critical step towards the future. The government has just committed to reducing carbon emissions by 50% within in the next 10 years. And Let's Get Wellington Moving has a climate emergency for a core goal with a 40% reduction in carbon. But as many of my colleagues know, and many of my colleagues agree, we can't always wait for Let's Get Wellington Moving. Our city is not a thoroughfare. It is a community of people stuck in traffic, and those who are most impacted are left without a connection to work or education. We also have really clear results across the region, up to the Hutt, Wairarapa, Kapiti Coast and Pūroro, that show young school leavers are paying for multiple buses in order to get low-wage jobs, and cost alongside other barriers preventing more young people from using our public transport and getting access to the tertiary education or training that they might be seeking. And chatting with a mate of mine, Councillor Trillin at Pūroro City Council, there is a particularly concerning amount of inequity growing in the form of young people and people trying to pursue work on education. So it's actually a really large economic issue for our region if we don't make our city more accessible. I'm sure most of you can join the dots around the ties between accessibility, since we have so many keen advocates for free parking over Christmas. Hopefully you can see the merit in free public transport 24/7 all year round. Often the vehicle is comes at the cost of petrol before food. So we also know for our community service card holders, a lot of the manahiri or the taumai that engage with our support services rely on a private vehicle that is often cheaper than catching public transport if you have to commute all the way from Tawa to get to Newtown to pick up a food bag. And that's just one example of many stories. Lastly, I'll just close off with, we don't want our city to be continuing on an inequity crisis and car domination. And I just really would like to thank all the young people in the grassroots community for coming together. They sign on about 3 new territorial authorities or community service providers every day with this campaign. And yeah, just lastly, want to extend the thanks there, and thanks to the support for my colleagues. Cheers.
Thank you. Councillor Rush and then Councillor Foon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think we should be pulling our punches with the Minister or the government. The biggest polluter in town is the government, and the government is the one that is within its grasp to actually do something about it. It just doesn't have guts. It doesn't have a plan. It makes wonderful, wonderful public statements in Glasgow about how we're going to halve our emissions by 2030, but without a plan other than to spend billions planting trees in Papua New Guinea. I can tell you, Papua New Guinea doesn't need more trees, okay? We need to have a better plan. And the first thing we should be doing is adjusting our State-Owned Enterprises Act so the actors there do not have to act in a profitable manner. They should be able to do things which are of public service, and boy, oh boy, decarbonising New Zealand is not commercially profitable at this point. It needs state funding, and that's why I was asking about state-owned activity. We've got Genesis, who is majority owned by the government, a big gas burner, and is the biggest importer of coal in New Zealand, and is tipping us into a higher emitting section than we were at least prior to the oil and gas ban. But let's not go into that. Meridian's got 10 consented wind farms, which are going nowhere because they are not profitable until we get rid of the likes of coal. The biggest farmer in town, Landcorp. So in my view, the government does need to be told. It's in their hands to be doing something, and they need to come up with technological and economically viable plans which will need subsidising without doubt. And that's how we built the trains, that's how we built the power stations, that's how we've built all our infrastructure over New Zealand's very short history. We just need to realise that the private sector ain't going to do it, the government needs to. I'm going to support the amendments, but I do wonder if you're really wanting to get the best bang for your buck in terms of decarbonisation, is giving free bus fares to students. In my student days, I marched shoulder to shoulder with Andrew Little 1, 2, 3 and a bit, Phil Goff was full of you know what. And when they introduced student fees. Okay, so students wanting a handout's not new. But nevertheless, I do think that if you're going to make public transport free for some, make it free for all. The government will shortly trumpet how our emissions have reduced because Marsden Point's no longer making petroleum products, it's just importing it. So all those emissions are now being done in Singapore. So there's a lot of talk and a lot of should we say, distortion and around this, a lot of narrative as well. But this, I was very, very disappointed. I know Alison shares this as well, that this is a discussion document about what should we do, guys. And yet the government's got the biggest toolkit in the country. So I think it should be doing more. We should be more aggressive.
Councillor Rush, I'm just
Well done.
overcome by what a wonderful speech that was. Can I just suggest that you actually now move an amendment to just put that thing about the SOEs? I was just such a wonderful point. Whether we could just, if you're okay with moving that, just something along the lines of suggest that the SOE Act is changed to
give greater flexibility to take on decarbonisation measures which are not commercially profitable. Something like that.
Yeah.
Are officers okay with something like that?
I'll send you a membership card for the Greens soon. Right. Okay.
Julianne gave me one.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to change. Is there someone that could second? Could we incorporate it? Okay, great. Okay. With the leave of the meeting, is that acceptable? Yep. Lovely, wonderful. Right, Councillor Foon and then Councillor O'Neill. If you really want to say something, no, it's just that, yeah. No.
I want to vote. Procedural motion, let's vote.
Do you have a seconder?
Seconder.
Who's Councillor Wolf?
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Calvert, you've already spoken, so you can't move the procedural motion. Someone else will have to
Maybe
move.
somebody else can move the procedural motion.
Okay, I'm going to speak really fast.
That's good on you.
I do want to thank our climate change response team. They are being amazing and, really showing strong leadership, but not only for our council, but for our region and for our nation. So it's really important that Wellington's got this under control. I really thank everyone in our council team for bringing this, but also Aotearoa Collective. This Free Fares campaign is so important. Just a personal experience with a sister, a solo mum with 3 kids in Kapiti. They cannot catch the train. It is too expensive, so they drive. And they are not connected to the city and they are not coming in. So opportunities like this will make a world of difference to so many. Just on the waste aspect, I'm really excited to see a suggestion by the government to ban green food and paper from landfill. This will drive these products into a circular economy, but my request here is that we continue the discussion with government about that food or green resource replenishing and regenerating our soils, because there's no point in it going off to somewhere where it is not put back into a fully circular system, and I don't believe the government or MFE have really got that opportunity under wraps yet. That's enough from me. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Councillor O'Neill, did you have one last comment that you wanted to make?
No. Put it to the vote.
All right. Well, just very quickly, Councillor Paul, thank you for talking about universal PT access. I think that's right. And universal basic income, universal housing, that's where we do need to go. But let's just start with that. Greater Wellington is trying, Councillor Calvert, and I think we're just trying to work very constructively with them, but it's good to have the challenge. Councillor Day, thank you for your point about not having a go. We're just trying to do something positive, right? So I did appreciate that point. Councillor O'Neill, thank you for your leadership here, and for Generation Zero obviously has been an important organisation in getting us into this space, so thank you very much. And I'm still just overcome, Councillor Rush. but I'm not sure the government is the biggest polluter. I think we might have a bit of a discussion about some sections of the private sector, but nevertheless, we will work with Mr. Peach to get that point in about the SOEs, because I thought it was just such a good one. And this is not a student handout, though. I will disagree politely with you on that. This is just making sure it's equitable and that our students are well supported, given that they have an important job to do in the future. So I'm just going to ask that we vote 1, 2 and 5 and then 3 and 4 separately, just so that we're clear about the vote on the public transport campaign. So that's number one. That's about 1, 2, 5 and 6 is about for the councillors online. This is about the submission purely. 3 and 4 is about the supporting the free fares campaign. Have you got that? Can you see that screen now? So it just gets a bit complicated. Yeah, so one.
So sorry, can you just do those numbers again?
Sure, 1, 2, 5 and 6 we'll vote on first, and then we'll vote on the free fares campaign separately. Is that kind of clear? Just give you a bit of a moment. Okay, yeah. So what? Yeah, 1, 2, 5 and 6. Yep, we could take a division. Yep. Well, hopefully it. Unanimous. Might not need to. Yeah. Councillor Young. It's just 1, 2, 5 and 6. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's unanimous. Thank you so much, colleagues. And now 3 and 4 on the free fares campaign. Councillor Calvert. Yep, good on you. Thank you. So that's passed with Councillor Wolfe and Councillor Young voting no. Thank you very much, colleagues. I'm aware that I promised to have you out before lunchtime, so we're going to go to the next paper. It is a very, this is the first housing paper, so I think that's Rebecca Tong on the first one. Yes. So, Rebecca, would you like to introduce the paper?
Kia ora, councillors. So this paper really is just the start of a piece of work to update our housing strategy. I don't want to call it a review because it's not. Our strategy is good. It's got some fundamental outcomes that are lasting, but we're just aware that there's some areas that could be added and updated in there. So that's the paper. It's fairly simple, so happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? It is a great paper. So, I'm excited about stuff around the accessibility.
I have a question.
Oh yes, Councillor Matthews. I'm sorry, I couldn't see you on the screen. You go.
So my question is Rebecca, I just wanted to check in. So those the targets for accessible units within our own housing stock. I know that there has been some delays, and we're sort of still on a bit of a learning path. When do you think? What's the timeline for when we will have that? Will that be part of this refresh?
Yes, absolutely. And in terms of how we're building it into Te Kāinga in particular, we'll have an update early next year in February, which will come up in the next paper possibly. But we're certainly looking at a measurement framework for the housing strategy, which we capture a lot of a lot of data on lots of different things, but we want to bring that under a housing umbrella so that we can tell a clearer story, and accessibility will certainly be a part of that, and we'll be talking to our accessibility advisor on that as well. So.
Is that it? Great. Can I just ask about the sustainability focus? Will staff be ambitious and really trying to get a good Homestar rating or whatever system that you use?
Yeah, again, that's our main vehicle for that at the moment, I guess, is Te Kāinga. And so that will come through early next year on how we're going to approach that. Conversations have been going on with developers to really push that, but I'll probably leave that for early next year.
Okay, and in terms of more Māori housing, presumably deep conversations going on with mana whenua?
Yes, yep, absolutely. So we've got a secondi from Ngāti Toa who has started a couple of months ago. She's with us 2 days a week, which is great. We made the same offer to Taranaki Whānui and Te Ātiawa. They couldn't spare the resource, understandably, but we're working to establish a bit of a advisory group that will look over this housing strategy and Te Mahana. So Te Mahana is coming through committee early next year, so we'll hopefully be able to share some terms of reference for that group at that time.
Kia ora. Any other questions? Great. Okay.
Easy.
Thank you very much for all your work. So, yes, I do have great pleasure in moving this paper. Thank you to the officers. Thank you to Councillor Matthews for your tireless advocacy on behalf of the disabled people's community. Look, it's well overdue that we need to be doing a lot more in the accessible housing space. So I look very much forward to seeing that work, as well as a stronger focus on greening our housing stock and more housing for Māori. It's just a no-brainer, more affordable housing. So we will be in great anticipation to see where this work gets to and whether we can push it harder to make sure that everyone is well housed in good green housing. Seconder, Councillor Fitzsimons.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to second this, and I think it's great that we're seeing very practical examples of the work going on. And I guess I also just want to note that this is only a very small part of the work that we're doing and the discussions that we have, and they're really only capturing them in broad terms and with concrete projects, so there is a lot more than is in this paper. And I just want to raise the point that Councillor Matthews raised about targets, because we did actually agree, and the relevant previous decision section of the report says, agree that future reports on housing action plan include targets to increase the number of universal design accessible units across the council's portfolio, including what actions have been taken to increase it and update on progress against targets. And here we have a report that doesn't actually have those targets in it. So I just want it noted that that resolution was agreed and still hasn't been addressed, and that it's really good that we have these relevant previous decisions on here now and accept the answer for today, but we really do need to see that, or else we'll just start to move the targets ourselves and we'll develop them. So it's much better if you can provide them based on the analysis and work that you do. So thanks for the work though.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Councillor Fitzsimons, I again thank you for your diligence in making sure that amendments are actually followed up on. And in fact, that we'll discuss that when we come to the action tracking one, where, there's not always dates put by things, and we just really need to be rigorous around that. This is very, very important that we have those targets. Right, if we can vote. Thank you. Fantastic, that's unanimous. Thank you, colleagues. Right, Mr. Hodgetts, on the Ford program. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, colleagues? Right, okay. Well, we can move that quickly and vote. Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor Free, thank you. Yes. Okay.
Can people use the microphones? We can't hear.
Oh, sorry. I don't think anyone was talking. It's all right.
No one's saying anything.
Sorry, we're just waiting
voting.
for the vote.
So if we put the vote,
Sorry, we're
apologies.
voting on just on the Ford program at the moment.
Okay.
Apologies. Sorry, I thought.
And nobody spoke to it.
Sorry, I need to slow it down a bit. Councillor Rush.
Sean? We're voting on the...
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, again, Mr. Hodgetts, on the action tracking.
Yeah, just a quick introduction, Madam Chair, please. So the last time we reported back to the Planning Environment Committee, Pūroro, Āmua, we hadn't made substantial progress, but you'll see this time the needle shifted quite a bit. We've got 17 that's still in progress from the last October, November meetings, but 14 have now been completed. So you're happy to take questions.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions? Can I start then? Look, appreciate the work that you've done, but I guess I'd like to see some more detail so that we know exactly where things are at. So, for example, around the whātua, when are we getting the report back? The engagement with local businesses on the Golden Mile. So, for the next report, is it possible just to put a bit more information in?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, if councillors of a view that there's aspects of these actions that need a bit more explanation and perhaps milestones, then yeah, I mean, by all means, get in touch with officers and we'll include that additional detail. But for those two items, I can take that on.
Oh, but I mean, I'd say it about the Brooklyn consultation, we had the braking issue. That would certainly be helpful. And I also was just curious what Kāinga Ora had said about the Newtown scheme too. You said you gave it to them, but have they done anything with it? So, yeah, just a little bit more information.
Yep, I can get the officers responsible and the units responsible to provide a bit more clarity on those ones.
Okay. And then I've also got a question around, I think it was me that moved the amendment at the time of the spatial plan around looking at tools to incentivise good development. And I was wanting a slightly broader approach than I think what had been mentioned here. So look, some of that I might be able to take offline with you. But yeah, just as Councillor Fitzsimons has rightly pointed out, we just need to, we pass these things and we really want to make sure they're closed off and, yeah.
Sorry, I took a call and stepped out for the moment, Madam Chair, and that got on the end of that conversation, but
just about that was about the accessible housing, and actually we did agree to set targets and, yeah.
So is that in the action tracking or do you want that included?
Actually, I'm not sure.
I think I'm hearing you want it included.
Yeah. It won't be, so.
Predates it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I have had a chat with Mr. McDonald about setting those targets, and he is working on it. I wasn't here for the answer, but okay, great.
Okay, so no, that's good. Right, no other questions? Sorry, I can't see people on Zoom at the moment. No questions. All right, great. Okay, well, I'm moving the paper. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Paul, thank you. Any debate?
Yes, I would like to speak.
Yes, Councillor Matthews.
I just wanted, and I did want a second, but I was too slow because you can't see me. I just briefly wanted to acknowledge Liam and his team for the vast quantity of work that has been undertaken. And I think that in many of these debates, we kind of, we focus on the changes that we want to make. But I just really wanted to say thank you and to pass on thanks to all of the team for the huge pieces of work under a very changing, constantly changing sort of circumstance. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, just to acknowledge you, Councillor Matthews, for your great courtesy and support of the staff. That is much appreciated. Right, if we can now vote on the action trackings paper, receive the information. Thank you. Right, that's carried unanimously. Many thanks. Now, Mr. McDonald, warm welcome to you. Thank you. Let's come and introduce the last paper of the day. Oh, intend to.
I better keep the introduction very brief then. Yeah, so the paper provides an update on the current programme, notes work that we have underway, which we are going to be reporting back in February, which we sort of touched on already in the housing strategy paper. It notes the high-level delivery programme in terms of the 1,000 units being delivered over the 5-year term, and notes the 6-month feedback which we've had from tenants, and happy to take any questions.
Great. Any questions? Can I just ask why you were actually, I thought, a little bit hard on yourselves? I thought the results from the tenant surveys were excellent, and of course there's always room for improvement, but I thought you were a little bit self-critical.
So I'm Scottish, and that probably covers it off. One thing I would sort of note in terms of the accessibility and sustainable work that's underway is during the August lockdown now, we took the opportunity to get the entire team trained as Homestar practitioners. So I think it's important to note that we're absolutely throwing everything at this, and we have two of the technical officers in our team who are going through the full assessor and designer training. So it is absolutely a priority for us. I think it's just worth noting that we are throwing everything at that.
That's music to my ears. Thank you so much. Councillor Condi.
Thanks. I was just wondering about how these projects are managing with cost escalations and supply chains and all of those sorts of things. We've obviously been having all those conversations at council, and just wondering how that is affecting the program of work that you're doing and how you're trying to work through those issues.
Yeah, it plays quite a significant part in terms of the conversation around accessibility in particular, and we're sort of working through how we can focus at doing more at a design level. So it's early in the process to help sort of manage costs. The construction sector, as we sort of spoke a little bit about yesterday, there is cost escalation that we are just having to manage in terms of projects. It is going to make the achievement of new build projects that little bit harder. In terms of retrofitting, in terms of the projects we've got in front of us, fortunately a lot of these were committed with one party who was able to sort of have a bit of a pipeline approach. So that has helped us manage some of that so far, but it is absolutely something that is going to be more of a challenge in the next couple of years. We are working directly with the building owners to sort of try and preempt how we can manage that as much as possible. The approach that we take to our own projects, such as Harrison Street, we have a sort of early contractor involvement process. So we've shared all the IP around how that works with some of the building owners around ways that they might be able to manage some of this as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right, Councillor Fitzsimons, would you like to introduce the paper?
Yes, I'm very pleased to introduce the paper, and I just want to, by doing so, say thank you to the officers for the work that has gone on to this, because I know it's been a sort of like a child and a labour of love indeed. Yes, I just really wanted to acknowledge that, and I think you're seeing that in the results. And I think this is a project which has enjoyed unanimous support from this council, and I think that goes to show how important this work is, and I'm really pleased to see the scheme being successful and having the potential to roll out even further.
Thank you, and I'd just like to acknowledge former Mayor Lester, who actually put this program up, and it was difficult. It wasn't unanimously loved at the beginning, but and former Councillor Brian Dawson, yes, and look, it is working. We're seeing, and I know we need more, but nevertheless, that's a great effort from staff, and just how wonderful to hear that this issue around sustainable building is being taken really seriously. That is fantastic. So this should give some confidence to the city. We just need to do more of it, but we will keep going. And I did mean that seriously. I think those results from the tenants were excellent. Yes, there were some things to improve on, but it was the first time, and I think we shouldn't be engaging in spin, but we should give credit to people who've done a great job when they have, and the staff have done a great job. So thank you for that. Any other speakers? No? Oh, Councillor Foon?
really quick acknowledgement of almost like the refinement of the service aspect that we've given this, and really speaking to the tenants and understanding what we need to do when this particular project was not our core business or BAU for Wellington City Council. So just reading through, I was really impressed with the way that we've approached it. We've taken a service-based approach, and sounds like people are keen to do business with us further. So thank you for that just kind of way of approaching it. Appreciated. Deputy Mayor Free.
And I just wanted to say, reflect on the breadth of work in your directorate, Liam, and just say thank you, echoing Councillor Matthews' thoughts about how much is actually getting done, but also just to say that this makes me, I'm really pleased that we've actually done something, Council has done something to deliver additionality. So with all the struggles we're having with our social housing and other aspects of housing, this is something that we have done that's been successful. So it's good to reflect sometimes on the good things as well as the many things that we could do better.
Kia ora. Anyone else? Right, if we could vote then, please. Thank you. So that's taken as 1 to 5, last paper. Thanks, colleagues. It's the shortest committee ever for Pūroro Āmua. Yes, it is. Oh, that was unanimous. Thank you very much.
So many positive things in today's
So many positive
agenda.
things. Right, if we could stand for the closing karakia, and it is 3 minutes past 12. Congratulations, colleagues. Una here, ki te uru tapanui. Kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua. E te ara takatu. Ko ia rā e rongo, whakaria ake ki ronga. Kia wātia, ai rā kua wātia. See you tomorrow at Council. Thanks, everyone.